Hi, I'm Weiner from Sullivan Renaissance. I'm the Horticulture Program Manager, and I'm here today to talk about containers for your business, for yourself, for your community. We're going to start with the container itself. I always think bigger is better. You have a lot of room for the plants to grow, and they'll make a big impact. You need a container that has a hole on the bottom. At least one, 2 or 3 would be better because you need good drainage. The other thing you're going to need for your container are pot feet. You can buy pot feet or you can just use 3 bricks. I think we could find those somewhere around the outside of the house. Because when you water, you want the water to come out of the holes on the bottom, and then you'll be able to see that you've watered the pot correctly. This is one type of container. There's many different on the market, plastic, resin. Here are some newer type of containers, and this is what we would call, I like to call it a water labor saver, but it really isn't. It's just a true drop system, and when you water the plants, there is a reservoir that you fill up, and the water slowly percolates up into the soil as well as percolating down when it rains, and it keeps the plants watered at a nice even rate. You only have to fill these up perhaps once a week, which is great if you don't water very well or very long. And you can see here that I have different size containers. I think it's a great idea to consider a vignette, and I like to have the same type of containers when I do that. At least the same color would look really nice, and this trio would be very attractive both on your deck or in front of your business or perhaps at a public park. Next, we're going to talk about the soil that we use. It's actually not soil at all. It's potting mix. It's a mixture of peat moss, perlite, vermiculite, really no soil at all. It's lightweight, and when it wets, it stays very wet. When it's dry, it stays very dry. So we'll talk about the importance of watering later. So there are many different brands on the market. This is an all-purpose potting soil. This is not a commercial for anybody, but use that. Since we'll be filling a lot of pots, I've bought an even larger bag for our purposes today. So I'm going to get my Hori knife, one of the most important tools I think a gardener could have, because it saws and it cuts and it weeds and it does everything all at once. And we want to just open the bag and fill the pot. We have good drainage here, which is great. We can take the pot feet off for now. We don't need those to the end when we're going to set it down. And this is where, if you're not strong enough, you need a good friend to come over and visit with you. I'm only going to fill it halfway because I have plants to put in. So I'm about halfway filled. Any of the big clumps of dirt I'm going to break up. And let's take a look inside and look at this wonderful mix that I'm spilling out of the bag. You can see those little white perlite, and you can obviously see all this peat moss. Here we are. All right. So the first pot we're going to make is not going to be looking very pretty at the beginning, but it's going to be very useful at the end. We're going to make a vegetable and herb pot. I've filled the pot with soil. It has good drainage, and I'm going to place our tomato in. You could use either a large beefsteak, which will continue to grow but give you fruit later in the season. My favorite for pots are the cherry tomatoes, and this is a delicious yellow one called Sun Gold. So you want to plant tomatoes deep. I'm actually going to plant it so it's half in the soil. Believe it or not, we will form roots all along that hairy stem. It'll have a quicker, bigger root system when we do that. So I'm just going to actually sit it on top of the soil, since I'll be covering those stems with some soil in just a moment. The next thing I'm going to do is put my cage in now so that I can keep it protected as I put the other plants in. I'm going to get that cage in a few inches, 3 to 4. I'm going to lift the bottom leaves that will be above the soil right there, and we're ready to go. Now we can work around the tomato. So depending on what you like, I love chives. I love to put them in baked potatoes, chop up the leaves. I also like to eat the flowers in salads, and you can put the flowers in a clear vinegar and make a wonderful flavored vinegar. And oh, look at this surprise. Hey, when you buy a plant and you get a strawberry in there too, how good is that? Talk about an edible container. I'm going to take the roots, and again, I'm going to make them come out so that they could reach into the soil and grow. And so I think I've broken them all the way around and put it in. And I am making sure that the top level of my plants, the top level that it was growing in the pot, is at least 2 to 3 inches down off the lip of the container. This area between the top of the soil and the top of the pot is called freeboard. It takes its roots from the freeboard of a ship. When the water comes on the deck, it has to come up and then go down through holes. The hole is in the bottom of this, but it allows water to come up when it rains and then slowly go down, and you have that space between the top of the container and the soil for that to happen. So we've got our chive, and how about some fresh rosemary, roasting tomatoes? You could have a great meal with this. You want to, again, open up that root system. Please don't be afraid to do this. You're not hurting the plant. I don't hear it screaming. Put that in. And now, maybe you want a pepper. So here is a nice red pepper called Costa Rican. And this has a bit of a root system. I'm going to be a little more tender with this because this root system is kind of small and still developing. I'm not going to put it in as deep as that tomato. It does not have that hairy stem. So I'm going to lift up the soil and make a mountain inside and put it on top. There we go. And now, because I want something tomorrow, I found some lettuce that it's a nice mesclun mix and with nice different leaves and all. Again, let's open up those root systems. Let's make a little hill of soil so that it's just a couple inches from the rim. Let's put some more in, perhaps on the other side. Make a little hill of soil, put it in, and now we're ready to backfill. So, fill an empty pot with soil from your bag and start putting it in around the plants that you've placed in the pot. You don't have to pat yet. Okay, now I'm going to hold each of the plants up and I'm going to pat the soil around. I'm going to do the same thing with our chives. Our tomato is halfway in. Give it a nice little tuck like I'm putting it to bed. There's our pepper. And here is some more mixed greens. And we are set. Tomato will grow. As it grows, you want to make sure that it stays inside the cage. If it has a lot of leaves that are coming out and start to cover your herbs, don't be afraid to pinch back the leaves and allow a sunshed of light to get in there. You do want to fertilize. I would think with vegetables, some people might want to go with an organic vegetable blend, and you can use that. These are slow release granules. If that doesn't matter to you, then you can use the slow release fertilizer pellets. And here for this size pot, we would probably need about 7 or 8 tablespoons of them. And you would simply just spread that much fertilizer all along the top. each time that you water, a little bit of that fertilizer is going to be dispensed from these tiny granules, and this will slowly feed it through the summer. But I also, in addition, usually put half-strength fertilizer. If you use Miracle Grow or any of the organics, half-strength when I water at least once a week, if not more often, if you're watering more often. I would say this pot needs to get watered very well every 2 days, but the best way to tell, folks, your finger down to the second knuckle, stick it in, see if it's dry. If the soil's dry, give it that good soaking water until the water comes out of the bottom hole, and you'll be able to see that with the pot feet in. Now we're going to make an ornamental pot. This brings color to our decks, to our stores, anywhere where you're going to put it out front. And it's the same thing that we're going to do with vegetables or any other pots that we're going to fill. This pot in particular is interesting because it has this raised area on the bottom and holes sit on top of those protrusions. So it actually holds about 2 inches of water at the base. And I think that's great. You have to water these a little less, and the plants grow very well in them. So same thing, remember, you don't need rocks on the bottom. You only want to fill with soil. You want as many roots in this pot as possible because you want healthy plants. So we're going to fill it up, and we'll fill it halfway. And we're going to do a classic decorative pot. So we're about halfway full with our potting mix, not soil. We have choices. Your thrillers could be a house plant. This is called apostle plant, related to iris. When it gets 12 leaves, like 12 apostles, then it flowers. And actually, you know when to start your seeds in late winter. So this is an indicator plant. But perhaps it's not a house plant. Perhaps you want to put irises in your garden, but you don't have a lot of money, but you want dual use out of something. Why not put an iris in your pot now and then put it in the garden later in the summer, early fall, and then you get 2 uses out of it. Excitement this year and a landscape plant next year. Some of the classics are cannas, and there's many different varieties. This is a short yellow flowering one that gets to be about 3 feet tall. This is Pretoria with beautiful multicolored leaves of green, orange, and red. You might even find Calla Lilies at the store with those pretty white flowers that come out later in the month. There's bananas, and here's a large, tall, this one gets to be about 6 feet tall, a large red banana. So as you can see, lots of different choices there. Here is another, what we would call the thriller, and this is Cyperus. It's a cypress type of plant, and it's interesting. I love that, and it's airy, so you might want to use that. So why don't we? Remove the plant from its pot, take a look at the root system to see how much you need to break up, and tickle those roots. And for the most part, you put your thrillers in the middle. We want to make sure that we put it deep enough so we have at least an inch, 2 is better, of freeboard, or the space between the lip and the bottom, and then we're going to backfill. Because the next set of plants that we're going to put in are not in pots as big. So we want to fill up the soil level so that we have a nice landing pad for the next set. And here we go. So we have our beauty, we have our thriller. Now we want to go and look for some fillers. Some of the classics could be begonias. Here's dragon wing begonia, and here's what we call an elatior. They're all beautiful, and they fill up in the center here. So they are the filler. So let's go with this one. I love the color, and I think it will be pretty. Take it out of the pot. We'll just put one on one side, and let's balance the pot both visually and color-wise with one on the other side as well. If it's too low, don't forget that you can just take some soil inside the pot right now to make a little mountain underneath to fill that area up so that you could sit the plant on there, and then just get more soil to fill in for the next set of plants. We'll do the same thing as we just did before we put these in. We'll fill up on both sides, and we're ready. So I think we'll use one more filler. This is a kind of broad, stately plant that has large round flowers. So I think that's something that's airy, because the top is airy as well, might look really nice in this. So this is Euphorbia. It's actually related to poinsettia. We could put some of these in, and they'll fill in as well. And last but not least, we have the thriller, we have the filler. Now we're gonna put the spiller. So let's go over and see what we have. Many choices. This is Dichondra, Silver Falls. You could see that would pop a little. We might want to go with another flower. We might want to go with something that's variegated and makes a statement. There's the classic sweet potato vine. And we talked before about using perennials that we could put in our garden afterwards. And this is Lysimachia, and it's a beautiful ground cover. We might want to put that in. And with your spillers, they can all be the same, or you can mix and match them up and have a good time. I'm kind of a, many times an even Steven person, so I think I would use two of the same. So we're gonna put this Plectranthus in. It's gonna pick up the white of our filler Euphorbia. We have the color from our begonias, and we have this great Cyperus in the middle. So now all we'll do, as we did with our vegetable container earlier in our video, we're just gonna fill in between, and as we fill in, we're gonna slightly pat around the plants to make sure that we have a good soil root connection with the new plants in our new pot. And that's really it. Just kind of pull the plant to the side, pour the soil around it, make sure that you could feel the top of the soil that the pot was sitting in. And we'll go all the way around one more time. And you could see how you could easily use a big bag of soil. The larger the bag, the less expensive in the long run it's going to be. So I suggest you buy a big bag if you're gonna make a big pot. Okay, we are done. We've felt everything and it looks great. And there is our mix pot. Next, we're going to talk about the economy of planting. We mentioned it a little bit earlier, talking about using plants that we might use later, but let's talk about a pot that you may not be able to afford, maybe a brand new one. They could range in price from anywhere from $25 to $75 to $200, depending on how big a pot you want. But some of these nursery pots, the trees or shrubs may have been growing in, could certainly be your pot for the summer, and it's black and it's non-descriptive, and by the time the plants are in it, people are really just looking at the plants. They're not looking at the pot. So fill it up with soil as we have done in the past, and because it's a nursery pot, it has lots of holes on the bottom, and then we could put our plants inside. Now there's lots of things that you could put in, and let's just look at some choices. You could put a dahlia in. These we started many weeks ago, so that's why they're already in flower. And I think this would probably be the whole pot, but it's gorgeous. And if you did something that big, then I think you would just want to do some spillers along the side because it's just so big. That's all it is. Huge. Okay. We talked about edibles. So here's a bay leaves you use in soups and stews. You could put a bay leaf in, but at that point you could put some of our ornamentals. You could put the begonia. This white plant is Bacopa. Sounds like we're gonna dance. And another one that I truly love is Million Bells. It comes in many different colors: purple, orange, yellow, pink, and this gorgeous red with a dark center. So that's a choice for your thriller, your filler. And the Calibrachoa will fill, but it also will spill a little bit too. We talked about plants that we could put out later in the year. How about just putting a coral bells in the pot? So this is a really pretty orange sunset type of variety. We could put that in. And what if we used the Pretoria and put that in and picked up the red in this Calibrachoa? That would be really neat. And perhaps as a spiller, that? No, way too busy. How about popping it with yellow? Red and yellow is a great combination. We could put a red Calibrachoa on this side, and then we would want to put one on this side as well. This plant will grow up. There won't be too much underneath, so this can fill out and come down. Combinations. It's all in what you like, what colors you like, basically what makes you happy. Other plants that we can think about are classics. Geraniums. It could be the classic red geranium. It could be this Centennial Geranium. And we could put that in and maybe pop it with a Calla Lily. And again, we would want to have something that would pick up a different color in here, and it doesn't have to be in flower. So maybe we would put that Lysimachia that could go in our garden later on, and it would grow up. We would have the white flowers of the Calla Lily and the geranium. It's all in what you like. And another classic is Coleus. They are our workhorses in a container. There are so many different colors to choose from in the leaf patterns and venation. I just think they're super. Let's take a look at these. So what could we do with this pot? Maybe we do want to plant these iris later in the summer. We just can't do it now. So maybe we take the iris and we take a Coleus and we take our sedge and we want something tall and we'll pick up some red and we could do that. Now we don't have the thriller in the middle of the pot, but again, it's up to what you like. So remember, form, filler, spiller, and thriller. Remember function, if it's edible or if it's just ornamental. And remember that you can take your house plants out of the house, or you could use perennials and plant them in the garden afterwards. Plants, I think, are the one thing that we can all connect to. What do they do in our communities? I think when people see plants in front of stores, it reminds the pedestrians that the store owner cares about his business, and he cares about the people who come to visit his store. I think that in our public parks, when we have plants, it shows that we care about our community, we care about beauty. Plants, of course, are great for us, not only mentally, emotionally, physically. They could feed us, but I think they give us a sense of home, and they center us. In this time, when we do need something that's going to keep us calm and focused, I think gardening is a great way to do that. And I think making containers gives us a way to be individual in our likes and in our choices. And I think that if you go to the garden center now, you'll start looking at things and saying, oh, that's a thriller, that's a filler, that's a spiller, and I think you've got it. If you have any questions, you can certainly go to our resources on our website, and you can also see some container mixes, care of the containers, and many other pieces of information, everything from starting a garden to what is a weed. So thank you very much for joining us for our container program, and we look forward to another one again.
Okay, everyone. So that was beautiful, Diana. That was wonderful. Really, really nice. So at this time, we can actually do some questions and answers with Diana on container gardening. Does anyone have any questions? I think probably typing would be the best format in your Zoom group chat, and I can read them to Diana and she can answer them for you. So does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I do, but you want me to type it in?
Yeah, you know what, yeah, go ahead and you can speak. I just didn't want everyone, like
Yeah.
undoing their mics. So go ahead, sure.
Okay, so I recently put, about a week and a half ago, I used container gardening, but I used regular soil. Is that going to be a problem instead of that potting stuff?
Well, it's heavier than potting soil, so that's for the first issue.
Right.
The second is that topsoil has weed seeds in it, so you'll be weeding your container.
Yeah.
And I just think that the root systems of greenhouse plants, for the most part, in a container, it's easier to water and water correctly using potting soil versus topsoil.
Okay, so that's what I want to look for, potting soil.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So we have another question, which is, where do you buy these plants?
Okay, well, your local garden centers have more of a variety earlier in the season. So I urge you to start looking in the first and second week of May. And if you have a list of things that you already know you want to put in your containers, give it to your local garden center early in the season. Go in there in the beginning of May and say, I would like that Dichondra Silver Falls, and I would, and I want this many of something. Because one of the things that we've realized in the pandemic this year is that, first of all, there's a shortage of plants because no one knew or understood that everyone was going to be home and get the gardening bug. And also the growers were a little concerned that maybe the sales wouldn't be as high because of the pandemic, and they didn't read it right. So there's a large amount of, so there's a very high limit for what the garden centers have to purchase in total. So if they know at the beginning of the season that they have to purchase this many plants, you'll be on the list, you'll get what you want early in the season, and then you won't have to get what I would call the dregs of the garden center, or what's left when it's time for you to go in the 3rd, 4th week, or this year, because of the cold weather, even the 1st week in June, to go look for some plants. So think early, get a list, share it with your favorite garden center, and they'll have them all ready for you to pick up.
Thank you. So another one question, can you use perennials and how do you care for them through the winter?
Okay, so we did use a few perennials in the demonstration today. So what you would do before that first frost comes, late September, October, sometimes the middle of October, you need to take your container apart and you need to take the perennial out and put it into your garden. It really needs to go into the soil. If you don't have a place to put it in your garden, see if you have a friend who has some space in their garden to put it in and hold it for you to next spring. If you want to use that perennial again next spring in your container, all you would need to do is then dig it out of the garden, take a spade and cut it, I like to say north, south, east, west, or the sign of the cross. Cut it that way and then go in between the cuts and it should pop right out, and you'll be root pruning it and you'll have it ready for your container in 2021.
Great. So another question, would it be possible to transplant from regular soil to potting soil now?
Absolutely. And I would suggest that you do that. I think you'll get a plant that's growing a whole lot better in that nice, loose perlite, vermiculite, and peat moss mixture.
Great, great. Are there any special brands that I want to look for that kind of potting soil?
No, what you want to look for are 4 letters on the bag that I think is important. It's OMRI, and it's just a seal of approval that that product has been rated by the industry. So
Okay.
check that.
Great, great. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Anybody else have any questions for Diana?
I think I just want to say that the most important thing really is fertilizing, because you're watering this container every 2-3 days. And so the nutrients are going to go out of those bottom holes all the time. So it's important to use that half strength fertilizer that I had mentioned in the video.
What's the name of that again?
It's just any water-soluble fertilizer. I had shown Miracle Grow. There are so many different brands on the market.
Yeah, I got Miracle Grow.
Yep.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. Okay. Oh, if nobody else has a question, I have another one.
Okay.
I just bought some of the hydroponic basil at the supermarket, and I transplanted it in my soil. And it's not just the second day and he's like wilting. I think the sun is too strong, maybe.
Yeah, when you're taking something that's coming, straight out of a greenhouse, first of all, and then it hasn't even been growing in soil, it's been growing in water. It's shocked. Now you're shocking it even more. It's a good idea. Like I had brought home some cucumber seedlings from the store the other day because my first set of seeds did not germinate, and now I need to get a start on the season. So I brought them home and I actually put some Remay fabric over them. This is a fabric that you can use to extend your season early in the season, to put things out and have a little protective cover, and then you can use it when you're putting transplants out so they don't burn and those leaves turn that funny yellowish color. And then in the fall, when we start getting some cooler nights, that Remay can go over your vegetables to help protect them a little bit as well. It's sold by the row. It's not very expensive. You can also use it for insect control. If you've ever had on your zucchini, you know, some of those insects that get into the vine, you can cover the zucchini now and keep that insect from getting in. So it really has a lot of uses. And the rain goes right through it, yet it kind of filters out the strong sun. You wouldn't want to keep it on all summer, but you'd want to keep it on as like your emergency Band-Aid.
Okay, and what's that called?
Reemay, R-E-E-M-A-Y.
Okay, fabric, Reemay fabric.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
have a question.
Yes.
If should the plant or the herb that you're putting in the pot, should that be saturated with water, or how should you be watering?
Yeah,
Or should it be dry?
It's always good to have your plants hydrated before you're gonna tickle those roots and before you're gonna do all that. So I would suggest that a few hours before, the morning before or whatever, give everything a good watering. Make sure you see water come out of the holes of any pot when you water it. And then it will be hydrated and ready to go. And it'll be easy to get that root system open a little bit to accept the new soil that it's going into.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
I do have someone asking, and I'm not sure if this is in reference to the Reemay fabric. I think, does it attract animals and squirrels, I think is what they were asking.
No, I've never seen any animals really attracted to it at all. It does fly away easily, so I usually have some stones in the garden, or you can buy these little clips that go through the soil. It looks like a great big hair clip that goes in the soil to keep it down. You can get creative with how to keep it down. Just get some wire and bend it and put it through the fiber material, and it will stay down so it doesn't blow away. It's very light.
So the sun goes through that fabric too. You leave it on during
Yes. No, you leave it on when you need to. You leave it on for a few days so that your plants can get adjusted to the new environment because they've gone from a greenhouse, now they're going out to full sun and, you know, and wind and all of the elements.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Diana, can you tell us about the knife that you used?
Oh, okay, so it's called a hori knife, H-O-R-I. It's a planting knife. It comes by a couple different names. Many different companies make their own brand. The first one that I bought was from Lee Valley Tools 30 some odd years ago, and I'm still using the same one. And as I said, it has a little notch in the bottom for getting, you know, like dandelions out of the soil. It has one edge that has a serrated edge for it for cutting through plants, and then you can dig your holes. Up and down. It's really the only.
I'm sorry.
It's the only tool I bring out in the garden. I don't bring a trowel out anymore. I just bring that knife.
Anyone else have any questions? So Diana, maybe you can let us know where, if they wanted to view the video again, that they could go to. Is that possible?
Okay, I believe that we are going to have it on our website. I do have our marketing person here at my disposal. So let's see. She says yes, it'll be on the Sullivan Renaissance website. So visit us at sullivanrenaissance.org. That's where you can find the resource sheets that I was mentioning on container gardening, and just a lot of other gardening information as well. And also we still have business grants available, and we have a new grant program for 2020 for our anniversary where we are trying to revive areas around the county. So please take a look, and please join us in celebrating 20 years of Sullivan Renaissance.
Great.
Okay, everyone. So we wanted to thank you, Diana, and of course, Sullivan Renaissance for partnering with SUNY Sullivan and doing the video, and of course, doing the Q&A with us. And we hope we can partner again and do something like this. We seem to really people seem to really love gardening and getting outdoors, especially at this point. It's kind of a release for everyone. So I wanted to thank you so much.
Oh, it is my pleasure, and we hope to have another gardening seminar coming up in July, so stay tuned and check our website.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Done?
you.